We're on. Good evening, everybody. This is Mike Gray from The Striker. How's it going? I'm here tonight with my fellow co-host, Alex Ruiz. Alex, say hi to everybody.
Good evening, everybody. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I've been really busy lately. I had a little rant last go around about going to the gym and being very impressed with everyone with their Man City and Barcelona jerseys. I didn't have time to work out today. Last night I went though, and I saw two kits. One was actually a Roma jersey, which is funny because Roma's one of the OG kind of Eurosnap teams. Because all right, like I was talking about Barcelona and Man City, and to be fair, those are more just mainstream teams that have a lot of appeal. But Euro stubs are like hipsters, and hipsters. I mean, let's just say that when I played for UC Santa Cruz, like half the dudes on my team had like Italian jerseys of some type, like a lot of Florentina and stuff. So, but the other it wasn't even a kit; it was a jacket, but it was Club Tijuana Liga MX, which I thought was pretty cool. So I gave the guy a approving nod, and he gave me an approving nod back, and that was a dudes rock moment. But speaking of dudes rocking, uh, again, how have you been, man? I know you just wrote a recent article chronicling sort of the beginning of the season for the Galaxy. So
Yeah, I think I did this last year where I was like I just want to like look at the numbers, right? Like look at the data, what's kind of the things that stick out. Kind of give an early assessment through the first month of soccer, right? You've had 4 weeks of a Galaxy soccer. I mean, my biggest takeaway was like, look, it's kind of a little early to kind of say this season's lost. This team's gonna be bad. I mean, let's take a step back to remember there's gonna be 9 playoff teams this year. And I think if the Galaxy can go on a good run of games at some point in the season, they're going to be just fine. I wrote that the best player so far has been Gaston Brugman on this LA Galaxy team. I think for me, he's been, the most influential. He's done a little bit of everything, right? I was thinking about putting Ricky Puig up there, but I think, Gaston's contributions defensively is what's really helping this team out a lot. And we saw that, towards the later half of last year, but now we're going to get a full season of him being able to do what he does best, which is kind of sit at a number six role, cover ground, be able to spread the ball all around the field. And I think that's what the Galaxy is going to need to, be consistent in the possession based style. One of my surprises that I wrote, a player I was surprised about so far, was Raheem Edwards, mostly because I thought, his first game of the year was pretty horrible, to say the least. He didn't look like he belonged there. You had Juliana Alda, I think to say his name, come into the team now. He's likely going to be, a starter, or he was bought in to likely be a starter. But Edwards has really, improved his game the last couple of games. I think defensively, this last game against Portland, he sat back, and I think he was a lot more effective when it came to, using his athleticism and his speed for the best. I know for most of his career, he's been a player who's, played higher up the field, but I think, being tasked specifically to not be so adventurous really helped him out, and he really looks stabled out there. And I think also, too, the fact that, there's 3 left backs right now on the roster. There's gonna be room for Edwards to kind of move higher up the field, whether that's as a midfielder or a winger. And I think that really kind of suits what he's been for most of his career, which is a utility guy, somebody who can kind of play multiple positions. And I think we might see that at some point this year.
yeah, we forget that in Toronto he actually thrived as a reserve striker. So to have him, a lot of times you have these players who get converted to defense, and that's where they typically struggle. So to see him play in the middle, especially when he's been so prolific, at times or bombing up and down the flank, that's something I'd like to see. So let's move right ahead to this weekend. The Galaxy are at home. They're playing the Seattle Sounders, who just got done beating the tar out of Sporting Kansas City 4-1, courtesy of. Everyone's talking about Jordan Morris and his 4 goals, but it's the 22-year-old Leo Chu. He was prolific in just providing service to Morris all game. We played Sporting. They dominated us, but part of that was because they knew we didn't have any sort of threat. The opposite happened against Seattle. They were so worried about Jordan Morris that they were dropping 2 or 3 players back at a time, and the byproduct of that is you can't let Lodiero and Rusnak Cook, and so they have too many quality players, and they just tore the Sporting apart one goal at a time. And it gives me nightmares a little bit because I mean we all have nightmares of Jordan Morris just scoring goal after goal on the counterattack, and it's going to be a tough matchup. But the good news for the Galaxy is Seattle has some concerns with their lineup, especially for their fullbacks. Uh, First of all, you have Roldan. His I always forget his brother's name, but Alex Roldan. Uh, he actually came off at halftime versus the U.S. while in international duty for El Salvador. Uh, he's definitely doubtful. I don't think he plays Wednesday. He was off to the side training at Starfire, the Sounders complex. So we'll see about that. And then also Nuhu, the Cameroonian, he actually went 180 minutes on international duty, and that's a lot of travel, obviously, going to Africa and back. So he's not. He's more of a question mark, but either way, when you have both fullbacks having to be subbed out, that can affect that can affect the Galaxy's, or excuse me, Seattle's ability to punch the Galaxy on the counterattack. So the Galaxy have that going for them. Xavier Arrega, Raul Rui Diaz, who are scary, and Obed Vargas, they've all returned, so they'll all be good for the weekend. But yeah,
Yeah, but I think the biggest dilemma right now is kind of the starting lineup, like you said, because Jordan Morris played as a number 9 against Sporting Kansas City because Raul Ruiz Diaz was on international duty with Peru. Now with Ruiz Diaz back, I mean, what are you gonna do now? Are you gonna, put Morris back maybe out wide? Are you gonna keep him at the 9? Or are you gonna bench Ruiz Diaz? Who, if you really look at the numbers, and I'm gonna write about this later for tomorrow for my preview of the game, like Ruiz Diaz has a really good record against the LA Galaxy. So if Smetzer wants to start him, I completely understand. But at the same time, you have Jordan Morris, Cook out there, 4 goals as a center forward, and you're gonna move him out wide. Like, it's not, it's a big shift, but I mean, you're putting him somewhere else where he found great success in the last game, and I think that's gonna be a really interesting to watch when it comes to this lineup. So that's kind of just my big takeaway from Seattle so far. I mean, they obviously look good. When you lead in the league in a bunch of possession stats, when you have created the most XG, I think they've scored the most goals in the league. They've had the most passes in the league. Like this is a team that is really dangerous and coming into really good form.
yeah. To be fair to Vanny, we actually media day, so we got to talk to him briefly, and he's actually looking to take the Sounders head on. He spoke about his key to was making sure the Galaxy keep possession, and basically pull Seattle around and use that to create dangerous chances, and also to defend as a team. The Galaxy struggle with possession moments. Now, Vanny was actually very quick to talk about how good the team was versus Portland in terms of transition moments, but Seattle's an elite team with an elite attack, and it's going to be a completely different animal. Matt Doe brought up the fact that the Galaxy are 27th in the league in accuracy on crosses, and when you miss crosses, that's one of the easiest ways to start a transition and a counterattack. And it seemingly no matter what, the Galaxy have gotten burned by those over the years. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, when you think about how they play, right, they like to commit numbers forward. Like you'll see, Delgado or, the right back in this instance, we'll say Caligari is going to be starting, right? They'll make those overlapping runs. They'll help create that width. Sometimes you'll see Brugman, kind of rush a little bit forward to try to get into, the final third areas. Ricky Puig is going to be active, and also Puig really isn't that great of a defender. Like he's just not. He's most of the time he kind of looks like a traffic cone out there, but everybody knows it's not his strength. But yeah, the Galaxy can definitely be caught on the counter, considering there's if you're gonna have Jordan Morris play out wide, that's a guy who's speedy. I mean, Nico Ladero can like pick out any pass, so he's obviously a guy who you got to watch out when he's got the ball at his feet. And Raul Diaz, like I mentioned earlier, he's got a really good record scoring against the Galaxy. He's a fox in the box in there. He'll get his head on there, even though he's still kind of coming back from injury and trying to find some form. But it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he scores 2 against the LA Galaxy. He just has that tendency to always show up in this matchup.
it wouldn't surprise me too, man. But it is what it is. To be fair to Vanny, he's realistic about what this moment in the season is for the Galaxy. It's not about style points; it's about grinding out points. And again, he pointed out that the Portland had point one xG up until that very last chance at the end that Klinsmann made the brilliant save. But yeah, let's get to sort of some of the news that's been heard from today. And here we go. We're going to try a new feature. Like we said, every podcast, we're going to try something new. So let's hear from Vanny about Douglas Costa.
There's a lot of internet reports that Douglas is on his way out. Not true, and it's yeah, nonsense. He's just getting join us for the season. He's motivated and ready to. It could be a conversation. Working his way. Yeah, it's been great. I mean, weight, he fitness, like, weight as he was when he was at Bayern.
Okay, Vanny wasn't drunk. That was just a video. So let's see here. It's almost done. We'll just keep it going.
He's dropped that. He's been things. He looks quick.
Okay, first of all, I tested that and it was fine, so I don't know what happened there. I blame Riverside for that one, but
I just think it's, insane that Vanny said Douglas Costa looks like his Bayern Munich self. That was like what, 2016, 2017, his prime. That's like 5 years later. To me, that's a big take.
I'm glad that we're allowed to laugh about this because I got roasted on social media the second I posted it, and for me, it's not even the comment. It's just the fact that, I mean, Alex, we were there at Coachella. He didn't play at Coachella.
He did play with like a half, I think. Just one half, and that was about it.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it was
I
in the
don't know.
first game. I think I was like the only reporter there at that first game, but he played like a half.
Okay. I was talking about Saturday when we were all there
Oh, no,
together.
no, no. Yeah, no, in the first game, he like played like a half, and that was about it.
All right. All right. So when we were there, we didn't see him. It's we're gonna be on match day 6 coming up. We haven't seen this dude in at least like what feels like months, and then now we're hearing from Vanny, and he makes the dude sound like he's to be frank, he makes him sound like he's Javi Chicharito, like he's just prime fitness, just putting content on social media, just being that person, that motivated, that person that's just okay, I'm gonna be the best. I mean, that's not Douglas Costa. We haven't even seen this guy. So I mean, again, Alex, what's going on here?
Yeah, I think, the best Douglas Costa, the Bayern Munich Douglas Costa from like 2016, 2017, that I'm assuming Vanny's referring to, because the 2020 Douglas Costa at Bayern was horrible. But that Douglas Costa was constantly running. That Douglas Costa was a real creative player, somebody who was always an outlet for wide passes, and a guy who constantly found himself in really good spots in the final third, could carry the ball, with him progressively, could lead, a counterattack. You know, he kind of sees some flashes of that last year, but he's not that same guy anymore. And for me, when you say like, oh, he's back to his fitness levels, I can believe that, maybe he looks good out there on the training field. But when it comes to game speed time, when you count for the physicality of MLS, I don't think he'll look nothing like that. I would like to be pleasantly surprised. I think, he's still a shifty player, and, he likes to bring that flair to the game, bring a different element in some way. But for me, it's gonna be hard to believe that he'll be at his Bayern Munich fitness levels. I don't think even not if he plays this game, but maybe 2-3 months down the line, I don't see him being a 90-minute player. Maybe 65, 75 minutes at most.
Perhaps we should just move on. Now, someone I am looking forward to talking about is Dejan Joveljic. Luckily, he returned from national team duty with Serbia injury-free. Alex, I think this is a great opportunity for the young Serbian because if you spend time around Deki, with maybe the exception of Ricky Pooch, I don't think there's a more competitive person on the squad. And so he's going to be looking at Preston Judd having a good game, getting plaudits from the fans. And, if something just tells me it's got a lot of fire under him, and he's just going to want to perform on Saturday. So
Yeah, I get that same vibe as well. I mean, being with the Serbian national team, like we kind of talked about in our first episode, like he was with some world-class strikers. Like, Alexander Mitrovic has been amazing for Fulham these last 2 years. Dusan Vlahovic is, one of the best up-and-coming strikers in the world. And to be part of their, core of strikers, of forwards, I think that's plenty of motivation for Joveljic to see like he can play up to this potential. And it's not just himself that sees that. It's the Galaxy that sees that, and it's also his national team that sees that. One of the top, European national teams when it comes to producing players. And I think that Joveljic definitely is going to want to stamp his mark on this game. Chicharito, not yet really going to be on the matchday squad for this game, but he's slowly coming back. And I think if Joveljic really wants to, kind of let Vanny think about this decision on whether benching him or not, he needs to have a good game, and I think he'll have an excellent game. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll score, but if he can affect the game in many different ways, that's, plenty for him to, remain in the starting lineup and lead this Galaxy team to success.
agreed. New Galaxy signing Julian Aude. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Technically, until Vicky gives us the correct pronunciation hook, so I'm not worried. But yeah, we found out that the timetable for him is going to be any day. It's been according days since they completed the visa process, which means at this point he just needs to get his passport back. Once he gets his passport back, I mean, Vanny said he can be on a plane tomorrow, so that's good news. Guess who we also spoke about? Jonathan Perez. We talked briefly on the last pod about Los Dos and how effective he was, albeit, me being a complainer was that I need to see him be more connected to the game for 90 minutes. I spoke about how on his passing chart, there wasn't even a line between him and the other attackers. So there's a problem there. But when Vanny spoke, he was actually very high on the. Let's see here. We need to get him games. He spoke about how he can fly, how he's the fastest person on the team, and here's an interesting quote. He was talking about how they need to get him with the first team and sometimes with the second team. Sometimes. The way he worded that suggests to me that they want to get him with the first team and get him possibly getting minutes as soon as possible. And why the hell not? I mean, what does the Galaxy need right now besides pace and someone who can stretch defenses? And, Perez has that in spades, and he's dangerous. And so, yes, he's inexperienced, but prior to this season, you had Perez and you had Jalen Neal being two of the most talented standouts when they played last year for the Leagues Cup Classic at whatever you call it at SoFi Stadium. Those were the two players who it was like, wow, we really need to see both of these guys get more game time. So
Yeah, and not just highly touted by the Galaxy, but by their own national teams, right? I mean, Jalen Neal was, constantly part of the U.S. youth national team. Johnny Perez, would go with the Mexican youth national team and, play games with them. So these aren't just players that the Galaxy view highly, but, that are viewed highly by other, organizations as well. And I think you with Perez, he's definitely an interesting player because, so young in his career, he's kind of dealt with some injuries that have kind of held him back from getting more playing time with the first team. I think the last couple of years, you kind of saw him be, one of those players that would be called up to the match day squad, wouldn't get any minutes, but would mostly play with G2 or, some other way to get minutes. And I think right now, Perez, all he needs to focus on is just getting on his fitness. I think Vanny, kind of like how he's seen Neal, kind of wants to bring him in a little bit slowly. I mean, the Galaxy signed him to a contract extension this past offseason. They definitely see something in him. I think Vanny sees something in him as well. And I think it's going to take some more playing time, whether that be at MLS Next Pro or, minutes off the bench with the LA Galaxy. He's going to need to get acclimated to playing, building chemistry with other teammates, finding ways to, get more in-game experience to develop not only on the field and his abilities, but also his IQ as well. I think that's very important for wingers, being able to know when to make the runs, the directions of the runs, kind of when to kind of stay on the shoulder of the last defender, when to kind of drop in deeper to help with the build out. I think Vanny wants to see that a bit more from Perez before he can really let him get a lot more minutes. And I think that's really an understandable approach to take with the player who, in the last couple of months hasn't really gotten much playing time, has been recovering from injury. And I think, the fact that the Galaxy gave him a contract extension kind of helps alleviate some of that pressure to perform now for Perez.
Yeah. Frankly, when you look back on it, it was almost criminal how Jalen, Saldana, and Perez were all injured last year. But at least they'll have the opportunity. I joked in a column a while back how the youngins, the young guns were going to be the summer signings because the Galaxy can't make summer signings. But I was waiting until the summer. We're not. It looks like we're not going to wait that long. So that's a good and a bad thing. Um, well, looks like we're near the end. The one thing that I wanted to sort of touch on before we go our separate ways for the ongoing supporters boycott. Uh, Taylor, he's Taylor Trollman. He's going to cover the game in LA this weekend, and I found it interesting. He tweeted about the game. He didn't tweet about going to see the game. Jordan Mortis and his 4 goals. He didn't tweet about the Galaxy and their exciting back line that's featuring, 3 standout young defenders in Jalen Neal and Caligari and Odd, all of which, have international experience. No, he wants to talk about the boycott. Uh, the most successful franchise in MLS history seems in flux a bit with the supporters unhappy. Should be fun. I'm gonna tell you something, Taylor. It's not fun. Going to the game is fun. In terms of just the general atmosphere, but without the supporters and the drums and all the energy they bring, you sit there in the press box and you're just waiting, and it never comes. And uh, well, I wanted to sort of touch on this a little bit because I did have another fan. I did have a fan who they tweeted something, and the general crux of it was basically saying, "Hey, media, hey, writers, reporters, podcasters, you have to cover this boycott because we're the fans, and we're the ones who matter, and we're the ones who made you who you are today." And um, look, this I'm joking, but I think about Josh Guessman, Corner of the Galaxy. I'm like, don't let the polo shirt fool you. Like, him and us at the striker, me and Alex. We've been covering this boycott pretty thoroughly over the past few months. Yeah, I did want to rant a little bit because it's really tough to find the right balance. We want to be fair to the fans, but we also want to be fair to the club. The Galaxy are hundreds of employees, not just one dude, and they all have a job to do, and we want to respect their point of view, and not just the fans and the front office. You want to be fair to us too, because how should I put this? We're not vessels to like take all the news and to just sort of pass it on to other people. What we do is we report the news, and because the boycott's relevant, that's why we're reporting on it. And it goes both ways, because if we take the boycott and we just start tweeting about it nonstop, then all of a sudden we're sensationalizing it, and then we're using it for our own benefit. Um, so we're just trying to do the best we can. So just to get that out of the way, but to sort of get to my point here, because that was a bit of a ramble. The Galaxy are facing a serious issue here. For me, the Sounders match, this is the last opportunity that the Galaxy have to fix things, because guess what's coming up in 2 weeks? El Trafico. And if
The
you
name of our
have
podcast.
Oh, thank you very much, Alex. And I'm telling you right now, if you have the Galaxy without those, LAFC fans, they smell blood. They always smell blood. They always come to Dignity Health Sports Park to, make a statement and send a message that they're the best fans in LA. And to be fair, what usually happens every El Trafico at Dignity Health Sports Park, the first 2 or 3 minutes, every single one of them's chanting, and it's a spectacle. And then usually the Galaxy fans pick it up, and so on and so forth. But if you only have one side doing that, you know, it's one thing to just, this boycott's bad, and when you get to the Galaxy, you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. Again, it's one thing to be bad for the club, to devalue the brand, but for some reason, maybe it just hits me right here. But the fact that the Galaxy, if you don't have the supporters there, you're putting the team at a competitive disadvantage versus their rivals. Something about the team actually suffering boycott, and it's not like the fans are doing it on purpose. It's very clear that it's about the front office, not about the fans. But to see them suffer, it just makes you go, what is going on here? Because, again, it's bad for the club, bad for the players. Guess who it's really bad for? Apple. They paid $2.5 billion with a B, to cover MLS. $250 million a year. That's a lot of bones. That's a lot of moolah. That's a lot of guacamole, right? And let's just, but it's got a perception problem, because for whatever reason, there's a lot of fans in America who love soccer, but they don't love MLS. And El Trafico, that's the one of the very few events, one of the very few matchups in this league that transcends all that. You have two teams with a high level of play. You have stars. You have an insane atmosphere in the entertainment capital of the world, world-class stadiums. It's a spectacle. You want to know why it's a spectacle? What is their latest episode? Zava, this guy who he's obviously supposed to be he's supposed to be mocking Zlatan. He's supposed to be Zlatan, right? And that's what makes the whole episode hilarious. But they El Trafico during the episode because it's a pop culture moment. It's a big effing deal, right? And so, okay, fine, you didn't get the Rose Bowl game, but the whole league, 29 teams, to have their product, not just one, but two El Traficos be compromised, it's like, this is just getting completely ridiculous. And now, all right, Alex, I'll let you talk because I've been talking for a minute, but there's a silver lining to all this. And there's actually a possible light at the end of the road for all that complaining I just did. And that is Willie Kuntz, or Will Kuntz to be exact. He's an executive who, according to Tom Boycott, he reported a few weeks ago the Galaxy actually hired him in the front office. Now, it's been a few weeks. We haven't heard a peep about this announcement. So what does that tell me? That tells me that they want, and this is where, it gets a little bit nuanced, but if the Galaxy aren't going to fire Klein, they have to convince the supporters that the team's never going to sign a Douglas Costa ever again, right? And the way that you're going to do that is you have to make some sort of formal announcement that will no longer be running the soccer operations. I've said it way more than I've said it a million times. Van der Sar, he's the CEO of Ajax. Make Klein the CEO of the Galaxy. Klein still gets to run the Galaxy. He still has a big important position. He gets to keep his dignity. The fans get to keep their dignity. Make it happen. So for me, the Willie, thanks. I gotta stop calling him Willie Kuntz. It's Will Kuntz. But for me, this is going to be very important because they have a few weeks to make this announcement. Either they are or they aren't. Who knows? Maybe they're just going to keep riding out this boycott. We'll see. But for me, that's the best way to get something done and to get results and to get it done quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest question mark really looming, like with the Galaxy, both on and off the field, right? Like right now, there's really no solution in sight. I don't think Chris Klein is going to go anywhere. I just think that the
He's not going
organization is going to, yeah, they're going to stand their ground. And I think it's, admirable that what the supporter groups are doing. I think it's always great when the fans can always kind of try to influence the club in a different way. And I think, this boycott was a big risk for them. It's a big risk for the club. But they're willing to do that, and I admire that they're willing to not go to games. They're willing to kind of be able to lose their influence in the stadium in a way, right? But will it work in getting Chris Klein out? I don't think that's going to work. You mentioned the hiring of Will Kuntz, right? Like that's another thing kind of thrown in the table now. Like I don't know if that's going to be enough, if that's going to be satisfactory. Um, what are they going to do with Chris Klein? There's just so many questions right now, and not really much being said. Like you said, we haven't heard an official statement from the club that Will Kuntz has joined the front office, right? It's just going to take some time, really, to see what happens. And I think, the Galaxy this season are relying on time. And I think that's the big theme, right? Like, they don't have their players healthy. They need time to kind of get that going, get themselves going as a club. They need time to kind of figure out this resolution with the supporters. And like you said, right, after this home game against Seattle, it's LAFC. And, LAFC fans will definitely take the opportunity to pick up those, tickets at Dignity Health Sports Park and, kind of, I guess, in a way, invade the stadium, right? Like it's such a dilemma. Just what goes on the field, what goes off the field. Like that's why this Galaxy season is just so. I won't say what's the word? I won't say it's bad, but there's just so many things going on in different directions, and it's kind of you can kind of talk about one thing for a while and another thing for a while. But right now, all I'm gonna do is kind of just wait and see what happens because right now it's a waiting game, both for the team on and off the field.
Yeah, like we want resolutions. That's I wrote about the fans being just. It's hard to come up with a word, jaded perhaps, but this is the beginning of the season. This is where you could be a team that's going to win 3 games all season, and you're supposed to be having fun. Galaxy fans, as of the middle of January, have had the same 2 questions for what feels like an eternity. Uh, when is the Galaxy going to have their squad complete, and when's this boycott going to stop? I mean, and it feels like we're in a time loop a little bit. I mean, Elias, our buddy Elias Burke, he wrote a good article over at the supporters boycott, and it's like you read about what's going on, and it's like you're in a time loop because we've been dealing with this for so long. Side, it's just a completely different thing, but for us, it's just it's a big side. But all right, Alex, looks like I'll let you go. We reached our half-hour limit. Thank God we didn't think we had a lot to talk about, but hey, it's fun to podcast. Sometimes you just go on and on and on. Tell the good people.
You can find me at The Striker. I'm the beat writer, so trying to pump out as much League of Legacy content as I can. You can find me at Twitter at ALXRUIZ15. Post a lot of, interesting takes, stats. Just I try to talk as much Galaxy as I can on there. I think, being a beat writer, you have to keep talking about the club and bringing up different perspectives and things like that. And so I try my best to do that on Twitter. So I'm assure you, if you really want to get Galaxy stats, info, insights, follow me and I can give that to you guys.
Tell the good people where they can find it. Did I steal that from Josh? I don't care. But yeah, I'm Mike Gray. You can find me at the Striker. My handle is Mike Gray AFC. You can find me on Instagram. I post columns at the Striker. I might have one out tomorrow, so keep an eye out on that. Follow us at the Striker. You can get 11-day free trial. The content is worth it. I guarantee it. This is Alex Ruiz, and